At the end of the last video, I showed you a pretty ugly package, and we kind of had to deal with the question. Let me pull it back up. It was which one of these would run? I have, since the last package, I've renamed them a little bit to maybe make it a little clearer for us. The first one you can see, it will succeed right here. Let me change over to blue. So that one's going to succeed right here. It's going to fail. So when we have our precedence constraints, we have both a failure and a success coming off of each of them. Now let's talk about how this is going to work, because let me just show you this. It's probably going to not work like you think it will. You said down here that this will run on success, but we know that one will fail, right? This one will run on failure, but we know this one will succeed. I'm going to hit F5. Which one do you think is going to pop up? Do you think the success, the failure, or both? Oops. You remember at the end of the last video I had all those tasks that just were thrown in there for junk. Let me just disable those. Sorry. I hadn't configured the backup database task or the FTP, so it was throwing errors. So here we go. Which one of those pops up, or both of them do? Well, none of them do. See, nothing pops up. We didn't get any messages because both these tasks did not succeed, nor did both of the preceding tasks fail. Important lesson here is that the default, when you have multiple precedence constraints, the default is that they both must evaluate to true, or all must evaluate to true. So let's now put a little note here. When you have multiple precedence constraints, and I'll just put PCS to say precedence constraints, the default is that all must evaluate to true in order to continue. Now that's probably way too small of text, and let's do this. And change our font to be readable. That's what the setting is here. Let's see. Okay. So when we have multiple precedence constraints that are tied to a single task, the default is that both must equate to true in order to continue. So in other words, you said that this is an on success constraint. Awesome. If this is successful, this might execute. But because there are two, now this also has to be true. Now notice that I didn't say this also has to execute successfully. I said it has to evaluate to true. You define what true is because you made that a green precedence constraint. You said green is success. So if this task does not end in success, then this is not true. This is in fact false, and therefore this will not run. Right? Let's just disable this one for a second. Let's just isolate on running two tasks with one task at the end. Okay? This one will succeed, this one will fail. I'm just going to hit F5, and nothing's going to happen. That's because both of these did not end successfully, right? They both did not evaluate to true. This evaluated to true. That ended successfully, but this evaluated to false. Okay. Now, if we change the definition here to say failure, now this will be true because it will succeed, and this will be true because it will fail. And so both have evaluated to true, and this is our little pop-up that we get at the end of running the run on success from the previous video that we configured, right? So in the event that you have multiple precedence constraints, the default is that they all have to evaluate to true, or it will not execute that statement, or that task. Okay? Does that make sense? You know, one of the challenges about not being in a classroom or speaking, I can't look at you and see, I hope that it makes sense to you, but I suspect it probably leaves a few people a little mystified. Let's go back over here to success here. Now let's talk about another aspect of how this all works, and that is the timing of when it works. Okay? In the event that we have a precedence constraint like this, and let me re-enable this one. The question is, when does this run? Does it run when both tasks have succeeded, or does it run when the first one evaluates? This will run when the precedent constraint has been met. Now, by that I mean because we have multiple precedence constraints here, and the default is configured so that both of them have to evaluate to true, this will not run until these two complete. Both of them have to complete before this one will run, because you have said that everything has to evaluate to true. So we have to know whether that is successful and whether this is successful before we can run this one. Now let's change it up. Okay. I want you to just kind of keep that in your brain. Okay. Oh, you know what? In fact, I won't. I actually, I'm going to change something up for you. Okay. I am going to do this. Let's disable this guy down here, and let's make this go back to failure. Okay. So just to point out, these are both going to be true now because that one will fail and that one will succeed. Okay, so because both were true, then this one actually evaluates and runs successfully, right? But I want to show you how we know how long it takes to run. Watch what I can do. I'm going to go to the will succeed, and I'm using C# for this. But I'm going to take advantage of knowing a little bit about the .NET Framework's threading model, and I'm going to make it go to sleep. So if you remember from the last video, we defined that this task ended in success. Well, let's put it to sleep. Let's use system.threading.thread. Be very careful doing this. This is never something you're going to do in a production package. Thread.sleep. And you can see this is in milliseconds here. I guess it doesn't say it here, but I can specify, there it is, milliseconds. That I want it to wait 5 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds. Okay. So, sorry, if you wanted to write the code down, I'm going to yank that out. But that's the basic code. That's the same code you would use in Visual Basic, just minus the semicolon. It's good to do debugging and stuff, but this is not production level stuff that we would put in real live packages. But what I've done is I've put a sleeper in here. So these two will execute at the same time. They'll kick off at the same time, but this one will then go to sleep for 5 seconds and then finish with success. So the whole point of why I'm doing this is to show you this will not run until both of these have executed, because we're using the AND. So right now it's waiting. You see the yellow? It's waiting. It's waiting. 5 seconds is now up, and we get our pop-up. It kind of popped under there because I had clicked the thing. But the bottom one didn't run until the 5 seconds was up. Let me do it again because I'm not sure. I don't want to. Just wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there you go. Because we had AND, because both of these had to evaluate to true, it had to wait for both to complete. Now you might be sitting there scratching your head going, I get it, man. What are you doing? You're boring me. I understand all of this. I promise this is a reason. Okay, let me re-enable this side of the thing now. Let me go back to original here, and let me take out my sleep. Let me take out that. I'm just going to comment it out. And now we're back to where we started this video, which is if I run it, nothing pops up. Okay. One final thing that I'll show you before, let me bring back my toolbox here. Before I really get into the OR, notice that there is this third option, the on completion. So we'll drag this onto this. I'll try to spread these guys out a little bit to make it a little clearer here what's going on, and maybe do something like that. Okay. So the on completion, it doesn't matter whether this one fails or succeeds. that makes no difference here. If we say down here, we'll do a message box again just to say completion. Completion. Mission completion. I doubt that too many people watch Little Einsteins. I have a 5-year-old, so put this up here. And we'll run this. You'll notice that we always, no matter what, get the completion. We can change this up to be any way we want. We can make that failure. We can make this success. And now, so we've really satisfied all three here. Right? But we're always going to get completion because completion doesn't care success, failure, as long as it finished. That's what really matters. Okay? All right, so I'm going to disable this just to, well, I'll leave it in. I'll leave it disabled. Okay. Now, stretch your brains because we're going to get into the interesting part of this video. Not that the other part wasn't interesting, but it was kind of knowledge you had to have before you could get to this. And in fact, actually, I'm going to push this to the next video. I apologize. You can stretch your brains, but this actually does deserve to be a separate video, and we've kind of run beyond. I try to keep them right in the 10 to 12 minute range. So I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop, and we'll come back in the next video. And let's talk about, or what if one of these is successful?